guys, it's Channel Jacker here. You might have seen the recent Storytroller video, the top 12 My Little Pony Season 3 episodes, worst to best. In that countdown, I freaked out a lot, and one of the specific freakouts I had was when Snips and Snails were mentioned. Addict and I also briefly touched on these two existing, and another character, Derpy Hooves, being erased from existence, and our hatred towards that. With a cooler head, and for the people who don't know about this is going to be a new segment I call Jacked In, where I analyze certain characters, certain things that are happening, and in this particular case, it's going to be Snips, Snails, and Derpy Hooves. So I hope you all enjoy. To start this, let me first give you a background on Snips and Snails. This unicorn duo makes their appearance in Ghostbusters. They are featured heavily being two dumb colts that are oblivious to Trixie's lying and subpar smoke and mirror magic tricks. They are idiots. For the short end of the description, they're idiots. As said in the countdown, aside from Big Mac, they were the first two boy ponies to really be shown in the series. And because of that, people didn't like how they were portrayed. Slow, bumbling, completely oblivious, and also the misshapen appearances. Though when they first appeared, people kind of just went, and brushed them off, they continued to make minor appearances later in the Showstoppers and Ponyville Confidential, before reprising their role as dumb, oblivious idiots in Magic Duel in Season 3, which is also the return of Trixie. Yeah, they were annoying, unfunny, and Pet Rocks were more entertaining. They really didn't do anything to anyone aside from that at first. However, the trouble really started with these two after probably one of the biggest minefields in My Little Pony history went off, in the name of Derpy Hooves. Derpy Hooves is a gray female Pegasus with Bubbles as a cutie mark that honestly shouldn't even exist. In the first ever My Little Pony episode, there was an animation error which caused one of the background pony's eyes to become crossed, and the rest is history. The fan base of the show was notorious for taking background characters and giving them identities that the writers only dream about. Some of these include Vinyl Scratch, Lyra Heartstrings, Octavia, and Dr. Hooves, and countless others. But the biggest of these by far was, and still is, Derpy Hooves. Any little thing Derpy Hooves did became a mainstay with her character in the fanbase universe. Her cross eyes became the focal point of her character. The name Derpy Hooves became her go-to name, though in the Dr. Hooves series she was given the moniker of Ditsy Doo. You'll later see Derpy was the one that stuck, though. In one episode it looks like she's saying the word muffins. Because of that, she's in a lot of fan-made works where she is a muffin fanatic. In Feeling Pinky Keen, a bunch of objects land on Twilight. Panning back up to the sky, Derpy is helping deliver things, and she seems to be the culprit of the dropped objects. Because of this, she has made a male pony in the fandom universe as well. Every little thing Derpy did was absorbed and made into her character. People loved her, they adored her. Derpy Hooves was, and probably forever will be, a staple in the My Little Pony fandom. And then, the unthinkable happened. In the episode titled The Last Roundup, it began with Rainbow Dash nailing in a sign. Usual start. Then, she said,
"Now, careful, Derpy!"
and panned over to Derpy bouncing on a cloud, saying not to cause any more damage than she had already done. At this point, every brony was having a seizure, and it got even worse when this happened.
"I just don't know what went wrong."
By that point, heart attacks and strokes were happening all throughout the fandom. Not only did Derpy become a canon character, she got lines, she spoke, and that's something people never thought would ever happen. A lot of people thought Derpy would just be, at most, a background character for them to enjoy and create their own imagination for. And they were, for the most part, content with that. However, what happened was Derpy was taken from that background, from that imagination, and made into reality. In the few minutes of screen time she got, she's shown to be having a dopey voice. But she's voiced by Tabitha St. Germain, who also voices Rarity, so she was in good hands. She is, of course, also depicted as a klutz, blamed for destroying City Hall and also causing a lot of work-related mishaps with Rainbow Dash, which were hilarious. This was considered a great victory for the fandom. A character they built up got the recognition it deserved, and a lot of people thought it would only go up from there. Unfortunately, they were sadly mistaken. Soon after its release, iTunes released a new version of Derpy Hooves in the last roundup, depicting Derpy's voice in a different tone. They edited out Rainbow Dash calling her Derpy, and her eyes were corrected. This caused outrage in the brony community of the unwarranted censorship of their character, as shown if the video still exists of the dislike bar looking like a Sith lightsaber. I don't think people would have minded as much if the voice was the only thing changed. Some people didn't like the voice that was originally done. I for one thought that Tabitha, as always, with her voice work, did a fantastic job. However, they also changed the eyes. iTunes could never expect to do that and get away with it without a gigantic backlash, which they got. The eyes are Derpy Hooves. The eyes are the reason she exists in the first place. They are her character trait. However, iTunes thought the character was too dumb-sounding and dumb-looking. A minor negative feedback from Derpy Hooves also came from this. Not a gigantic backlash, but apparently some people wrote in calling Derpy offensive and, quote-unquote, retarded, and that some of their children are also retarded or have cross eyes, and they found it offensive that the character existed. Yeah, I'd find it offensive too if I had a physical problem and a character on a show had the same physical problem that I could relate to and feel less alone in the world. Yeah, that pissed me off too. This sparked many fan-made videos of Derpy being censored, including the most popular of these titled Save Derpy, which there is an original of with just a picture, and the more popular one of an animated crying Derpy.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. It's not my fault that I'm like this.
Hearts were shattered. Anyway, long story short, some good news came out of it when it was released that Derpy would keep the Tabitha dub and the eyes as they were in the DVD release. However, the bad news is Derpy after this episode was regulated back to a background character for the rest of Season 2 and Season 3. And the community didn't mind as much. Yes, they were upset at iTunes, but damage control was made with the DVD release being the same, and Derpy still remaining in the background like it was before. Unfortunately, the scar would still be there that iTunes created, though the anger died down. However, recently in an announcement with Season 4, on top of someone coming out with the obvious fact that Alicorn Twilight was not supposed to happen, and it was Hasbro's doing, but the announcement came out that Derpy Hooves would essentially die. As of Season 4, Derpy Hooves won't even be appearing in the background. She's being erased completely, and this was most likely another Hasbro call, since it's being said they're starting to take more control of the show. That's comforting after seeing what they did to Magical Mystery Cure. Really is. But what does this have to do with Snips and Snails? Well, the answer to that is simple. They exist. Yes, Snips and Snails with their idiotic, dumb selves exist, while Derpy Hooves was censored and according to reports is going to be erased from existence. And a lot of people, for good reason, see this as an unfair treatment to a character. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but Derpy was more offensive than Snips and Snails, right? Well, let's take a look at that, shall we? First, let's look at appearances. In My Little Pony, most of the ponies have this cookie-cutter shape. And you know what I'm talking about. Almost all of them have the same base. Stallions are a tad different, being a bit bigger, but honestly, they still fall into the base for the most part. And Derpy does as well, having the same Pegasus base outline as the others. But what about Snips and Snails? Well, let's just take a look. Snips is short and fat, while Snails is tall and lanky. People complain that Derpy was offensive, but she looks like everybody else for the most part. Snips and Snails do not. In fact, they send a worse offensive message here, with Snips being short and fat and Snails being lanky and taller. So, is the message fat people and skinny people are stupid? Because it seems that way. As a heavier guy, I could take offense to this, easily, as could skinny and or tall people. It's kind of a bad message. Next, how about the eyes? This was a big topic, Derpy's crossed eyes. People thought it was offensive that her eyes were crossed, hinting that she was stupider, when honestly it was just an actual physical deficiency that exists in the real world. But taking a closer look, aside from that, Derpy's eyes also fit the norm for the eye design. In My Little Pony, big, with their own distinctive color, are the normal eye designs for all the ponies. Now let's look at Snips and Snails. Not only do their eyes not match the norm for ponies, but Snails' eyes actually cross on more than one occasion in Ghostbusters. Eye crossing is a staple of stupidity in cartoons. Derpy has no choice. It's a disease. There is no excuse for Snails. He does it to show that he's an idiot, on top of their eyes looking even more different than Derpy's with their design. In fact, Snips and Snails have even more standout features, being fat, skinny, long and short muzzles, and Snips has buck teeth. Just off the top of my head, those are a few differences, compared to the one flaw in Derpy's person. How about the voice? I'm looking at Tabitha's dub on this one. In this, her voice is a little deep, dumb-sounding, but honestly, that's Derpy. People took offense to this, saying her voice wasn't normal. It was too dumb-sounding. It made her sound like an idiot. But I ask you to listen to Derpy's dialogue. Does any of it sound stupid?
I just don't know what went wrong. Nice work, Rainbow Dad. You okay, Rainbow Dad? Anything I can do to help?
Now take a listen to Snips and Snails dialogue.
You thinking what I'm thinking?
Why is it they call it a flea market when they don't really sell fleas?
Oh, she's Rainbow Wobble now.
I like pudding.
Sounds a little different, doesn't it? Yeah, Snails sounds like much more of an idiot than Derpy, by miles in terms of that dialogue comparison. You can argue that Derpy could sound stupid in other dialogue, but the truth is, we'll never know. How about Snips?
But wouldn't it be faster if we had some wheels?
Even his voice isn't normal. Snips, yes, is the, quote, smarter one of the two, but in terms of voice distinction and dialogue, Snips and Snails win again in the more offensive category. Finally, in comparison, the name. People were up in arms about the name Derpy because people seem to figure that the term derp means retarded, whereas derp just means stupid or relating to a stupid action. True, I can see where the backlash came from with the name. However, nowhere in the definition does it describe derp as being retarded. Being stupid and retarded are two completely different things. Let's compare that to Snips and Snails. Where I can't really find a meaning for Snips' name, look at Snails. A snail is a slow animal, and Snails is the dumber of the two. Is that an implication that Snails is slow and stupid? It sounds about right. Though Derpy stands out more, it's definitely not something to attack or try and latch onto. Yes, it's not a common name, but that's what made it special in some cases. And though her name means stupid, Snips and Snails still have acted dumber than Derpy has in their respective appearances on the show. With all of this in mind, why are Snips and Snails overlooked? Why is Derpy punished? Unfortunately, it seems like a gender stereotyping. Don't know what I mean? Well, then I ask you to take a look at the cartoon media. Look at the families depicted, the people depicted and such like that. Usually, it's the mother and sister, siblings, and girls in general in the show which are smarter, whereas the fathers, sons, and boys in the show are usually depicted in a dumber light. Where can you find examples of this? Everywhere. Literally, almost every show has this in some sort of way. In current media, it's The Simpsons, Family Guy, The Amazing World of Gumball, SpongeBob SquarePants, Fairly Odd Parents, and more. Even in more classic cartoons that don't air in newer episodes, like Ed, Edd n Eddy, and The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, this is an evident trait. The normal depiction for a show is usually smarter, level-headed women and dumber, more reckless men.
I disagree about the keeper of the reaper. It should be me who's the keeper of the reaper. Grim's not a toy for an idiot boy who can't even tie his shoes.
Don't worry, I found some nachos. Yes. Ow!
Has this been tested before? Of course. There are some dumb girls or women in cartoon media, like Dee Dee from Dexter's Lab, Lindsay from the Total Drama series, and Timmy's mom and Aunt Wanda from the Fairly Odd Parents. However, they are vastly overwhelmed by smarter, more level-headed women in the cartoon media. Are there smarter guys? Yes. Are they overwhelmed by the dumber male stereotypes? Yes. There are a lot more dumb males opposed to smarter ones in cartoons, which is why Snips and Snails are most likely overlooked. Because despite the fact in many ways they are worse than Derpy, they blend in more than Derpy, and therefore they survive. But with all this into consideration, do Snips and Snails really deserve all the hate I and the fandom give them? Yes, they do. Why? Well, aside from the fact they are completely offensive, even worse being on a Y-rated show, I want you to look at this from a fandom standpoint. Picture you creating a character, for any series, a series you love, a series which you adore and think that your character can flourish in, and all of a sudden on an episode of that series, you see your character. You're overjoyed. You're at a loss for words. You want to shout it to the heavens that you made a difference. Then they turn right around, change the character, then destroy them for what they represented, when other characters in the same show are even worse than them, and they don't get punished. That's what happened with Derpy Hooves and Snips and Snails. The fandom of My Little Pony created a character they wanted to see flourish. They wanted to see her grow and wanted to see her interact with everyone around her. Unfortunately, that isn't going to happen, because she is too offensive to some eyes that can't handle change or difference. And that ticks a lot of people off. It's a spit in the face of something they created. They made it possible, and it was taken away from them in an instant. The My Little Pony community didn't create Snips and Snails. They had no connection to Snips and Snails. They hate Snips and Snails for existing and continuing to exist, and getting lines while Derpy is the one phased out of existence. It's a sad fact, but the truth of the matter is, because Snips and Snails fit into the norm of dumb boy characters, it will most likely continue to live, and Derpy will be eradicated. Will Derpy disappear, though? Never. Derpy Hooves will forever be cosplayed, drawn, animated, and remembered throughout the pony community, whereas Snips and Snails will just be the pit stains on a show with many great characters. And to the people that are saddened by the news that Derpy is leaving, being angered by it, all I can say for how cheesy it is that we'll always have the last roundup, and the fan-made videos of her. She will never truly go away in the hearts and the minds of the people who really love her as a character. No matter who says she was offensive, no matter what others' opinions are, we all know what Hasbro missed out on. They could have been different. They could have been innovative. But nope, let's have the dumb boy characters and destroy the slightly less intelligent cross-eyed pony. Because in reality, boys are all stupid and dumb and act this way, and girls who have mental and or physical deficiencies should be erased from existence. Sound harsh? Yeah. But with how many young children also watch the show, it's a bad message that's sent to all of them. Can we do anything about it? Doesn't look like it. But it's not the first mistake Hasbro's made, and because of Magical Mystery Cure, I have a bad feeling it won't be the last. And that's my jacked-in analysis of Derpy Hooves and Snips and Snails. What did you think? Leave comments, leave feedback, and I'll love to see it. But for now, I'm Channel Jacker. This has been a jacked-in analysis, and we are the Storytrollers.
If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough. When you get knocked down, you gotta get back up. I ain't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I know enough to know. If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough. I lit my brain with rot gut whiskey.